Major support for Do the Math has been provided by Chevron, the Kern County Superintendent of Schools, Edison International, Valley Strong Credit Union, California Resources Corporation, Panama Buena Vista Union School District, Bakersfield City School District, and Kern High School District, with additional production assistance provided by these supporters of education in Kern County and throughout the state of California.
Well, good afternoon and welcome to Do the Math. I'm Michael.
And I'm Scott.
And in studio with us we have Trevor. Trevor, if somebody needed to contact us, what would they need to do?
They would need to call 636-4357, and anywhere else it's 1-866-636-6284. And their email is dothemath@kern.org. And they're online on dothemathonline.net. And you can find them on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube.
All right, nicely done. Thanks for taking care of that for me. So where do you go to school and what grade are you in?
I'm in 5th grade and I go to Highgate.
Highgate Elementary, brand new school.
Yes, it is.
You like it over there?
Yeah, I like it.
Good. Where were you before?
Buena Vista.
And so you were a Bulldog.
Mm-hmm.
And had you been at Buena Vista for a long time?
Yes, I had. I'm pretty sure 2nd through 4th grade.
All right. So you were pretty used to Buena Vista, and then
Yes.
now you got an opportunity to go to Highgate.
Yes.
What's the best thing you like about being at a brand new school?
Honestly, I like just exploring the new elements of the new school.
So there's a lot of different areas you're not used to.
Yeah.
Right? So you get to, everything's brand new, and you find out all about it, right? Are you happy with the playground and the yard?
I like the field, the soccer field, because it just has so much space.
Good. Well, that's important, right?
Yeah.
Would you like more space?
Not really. I think there's enough.
All right, good. What about playground equipment?
I don't really use it often, but from the looks of it, and I played on it once or twice, I think
Okay.
it's pretty good.
Good. If there's something you could add to the school or change that's already there, what would it be?
Honestly, there's not much I can think of, but there's a couple things.
All right. So they did pretty good putting it together?
Yeah.
All right, good. So 5th grade is going pretty well so far?
Yes, it is.
All right. So what kind of things are you working on in math right now?
Geometry and fractions.
All right. So you feel pretty comfortable with fractions?
Yes.
And how far have you gotten with the geometry? You remember
It's been
any?
like the first week of geometry.
So it's brand new?
Yes.
All right. So are you going over shapes and figures, things
Yeah.
like that? All right. So you ready to do a little bit of that today?
Yes.
All right. Well, hold your horses there. We'll get to some of that in a little bit. But first, we are celebrating 20 years, and it is time for today's Math in the News. And as I said, we are celebrating 20 years on Do the Math this year. And we have had a lot of people help out with this program over the years. And during the season, you've met a lot of people that have been in front of the cameras. And all of this month, we're meeting the people behind the cameras. So yesterday, we spoke with Willie. Willie is working with Master Control and does a lot of stuff when we go on location, and talk to us a little bit about the microphones and stuff. Today, we have Aaron in studio with us today. So Aaron, what is your role with the program?
So currently right now I am the producer here at Do the Math, and I work a lot with everyone behind the scenes, and especially with you, Mike. We do a lot of different things. When we're in studio, there's a lot of things we do, like taking pictures, getting guests ready, also filling out time cards, making sure that all the materials we need we have.
And
Sometimes
here you are
taking
working the
calls.
phones right now.
Yes, sometimes taking
Taking
calls.
some phone calls from students.
Taking photos as well.
There you go. So see, people don't understand what's going on behind the scenes, right? We're working out problems with students, right? You're getting students ready to go on air with phone calls. And that's when you were a guest a couple of seasons ago.
Yes, that's when we had actually, that's another aspect of producing as well, as we'll go out on different various live locations. And that one, I'd been a guest on Taft College. We went to do a lab there, and it was interesting because it was right before really COVID took off, and we talked about germs.
Oh,
and the
that's
spread
right. I
of
do
them.
remember that now.
And I was part of they needed somebody else to help to demonstrate how many germs are on your hand. And so I came back to talk about how cool and a little bit gross it is.
I do remember that. So there is a lot that you guys do for me behind the scenes. And being one of the producers, there's a lot that is on you that a lot of people may not be aware of, and we've just hit the beginning of the mountain or the iceberg, let's say, with everything that you've done. So how did you first hear about Do the Math and become involved with the program? Because it's not like you've been here all 20 years.
No. Actually, what's very interesting is that I was involved in a different group with KCSOS called Leaders in Life. And over the summer, I was working on a program where we were filming something actually here in the studio. And while we were filming, I was just kind of interested. We have various lights up here, and I was like, hey, what's going on? What's with this studio? And I was talking with actually John, who I think we'll be talking with later this season, but I was like, hey, what's the studio? And we started talking about it, and then later that day, I actually got a message from my advisor saying, hey, John would like to reach out to you about possibly becoming a camera operator. And I said, yes, I'd love to. Came down here, met the studio, and the funny thing is that when I was walking through, I was like, oh, I hadn't seen the show before. And then as we were walking, it was actually an older episode from like 2005. I go, wait, this looks familiar. And my mom's like, oh, I used to always play this show when you were little. And then I was like, that's where it clicks. And so it's kind of interesting that watching this in PBS when I was younger, and then now being working here, it's very interesting.
And you didn't recognize me? A long time ago, that probably looked a little different. So that's how you've been involved. And do you remember when you became part of the program?
I do. It was summer, I think it was June 2017. So this summer will be 5 years, and then this is my 5th season so far.
All right, good. Now, I know that you're not going to be part of Do the Math forever, because Do the Math will not go on forever. I mean, it might, but what are your aspirations once you leave Do the Math?
Well, it's interesting because obviously when I was hired when I was 16, almost 17, and this really shaped my career and what I wanted to do, because being a producer and a camera operator originally, I realized this is the field of communications, and I found that I have a passion for it. So it actually, before I even started college, I was lucky enough to know this is what I want to do because of the show. So my goal is to I'm a communications major currently, and then I plan to work in communications or public relations.
Good. Well, speaking of communications and school, we have a little clip of when you were interviewed.
CSUB junior Aaron.
Oh, goodness.
The beginning of the pandemic, but sees the positives of not having to go to class in person.
So do you remember this?
Oh, I do, yes. I think I'm wearing the same jacket, actually.
Meanwhile,
We're getting used to it. Not
Oh,
really
that blue
there
one?
it is.
There you go.
comfortable or familiar with having your cameras on. So it's kind of interesting to see this year. I just started my classes today, and what I noticed is that all of my classes so far, a
So
lot
there
of
you go.
people
So you were
are
part
saying-
of Do the Math right then.
Yes.
Right, and talking about classes going remote and things like that. And right now, are you still remote? Are you in class? Is it both, or?
Still remote. I have a lot of my communication classes. It's actually a lot easier to be remote compared to in person because of lecture halls. But it looks like maybe next semester, my communication classes will then start to open to in person. A lot of my teachers were actually talking about moving back, but then they realized it's kind of hard to go back in person halfway through the semester. So
Right.
it's easier to start off maybe next semester with communication.
All right. Well, Aaron, thanks for taking some time. I know you're busy behind the scenes, but for coming out for a few minutes in front of the cameras as we celebrate our 20th season this year on Do the Math, and that is today's Math in the News. 636-4357 is the phone number. We do have phone tutors available most Tuesdays and Wednesdays throughout the regular school year. This month of March, this is the final month for Do the Math live broadcasting this season. Once April comes around in May, a lot of students are more involved in activities after school and at school, and the testing is coming up and things like that. So this is the final month of live broadcasting for the season. But we will return in September of next year, and we will continue on with season 21 and keep going from there. But we always have opportunities to go around town and see how math and science are applied to different industries. And we had an opportunity to visit one of our very own in-studio people behind the scenes. As you were mentioning, John Lenko, he's out at the March meets, which is happening right now this week. He's out there racing, and we went behind the scenes to see how he gets ready and what he does.
We're here today with John Lenko, the coordinator of Current Educational Television Network. It's the provider, the service provider, I would say, of the Do the Math program. So this is the man who makes everything else happen other than Do the Math that happens here in the county of Kern.
No. I'm just one of them. I have a great team.
Well, he's one of the many, but he does have the title of coordinator, but now he's not just a coordinator of the KETN network, he's a racer.
I am.
And it looks like when you're not busy helping out with the county superintendent of schools office, what do we have going on here?
Well, this is our dragster. We're getting ready for the March meet.
Okay.
It's the 64th annual March meet. So we'll be out there competing with our dragster in the Nostalgia Eliminator class. The March meet is for a nostalgic vehicle. So this vehicle represents what a dragster might have looked like in about 1968, 1969 era.
Okay.
And we're using that technology from that era as well.
Beautiful. So you talk about a dragster. What qualifies this as a dragster, and what type of, when you say race, what kind, some people might picture NASCAR doing laps. This obviously does not look the same as a NASCAR, what people would normally think of particularly. What's the difference between this and a regular race car, and what is drag racing?
Well, a dragster is a purposely built vehicle, and its job is to go down the quarter mile as quickly and safely as it can be. And it's an ever-evolving design. So this design, where the driver sits behind the engine, was very popular up until about 1970. In 1971, things started to change, and in a couple of years, the configuration of these cars changed dramatically. The driver was moved in front of the engine for obvious safety measures. So that's what a dragster is a purposely built vehicle for drag racing. And a drag race is an acceleration contest between two vehicles over the course of a quarter mile. They start from a standing start. First car to the finish line wins, the other car is eliminated.
So looking at this design, I'm pretty sure when you say a quarter mile, it's just straight down the track, like you said, as straight as possible, as safe as possible. So it's not exactly made to turn, it's made to go as straight as it can, as fast as it can.
Everything in the design of the car is to aid in it going straight and doing it safely.
Okay, now I'm looking at the car. In our next segment, we'll definitely get into the nitty gritty, like what is everything. Real quickly, could you get what got you into drag racing?
Well, I always had an interest in it. When I was a young guy, about the age of some of the viewers of our show, they all had sports heroes who were football players or baseball players. My heroes were race car drivers, and specifically drag racers.
Okay.
So this is the style of car that I saw my heroes drive when I was 7, 8, 9 years old. And so that's what I've grown up to do and want to do as a hobby.
That's amazing. So now when you talk about driving down the quarter mile as fastly, as safely as you can, is it all about speed and whoever gets there the fastest? Obviously, I'm assuming whoever gets there slowest is eliminated, but are you racing against everyone who's there that day, or do you specifically shoot for a specific speed or a time?
Excellent question. We race in what's called an index class, and that index class has a performance target. Our performance target is 7.6 seconds elapsed time, the time it takes us to get from the starting line to the finish line, 7.6 seconds. So that is the limiter in our class, and the other classes have different time limits like that. They're called indexes. So we're trying to make our car run as close to that 7.6 seconds as possible without going quicker. We want to get to the finish line first before our competitor gets there, but we can't go quicker than 7.6 seconds or we'll be disqualified.
So it's all about, it's coming up to it. We don't want to go over it. So you're
Correct.
meaning you don't want to be fast. You can't be too fast. Is that what I think some people might get confused and think going over the time really means coming in too far under the time. You don't want to be like a 7.4 or 7.3. That's correct. You're going too fast correct. For your index or your class.
Correct. And there are other classes that don't have indexes where the first car and the fastest car wins. but as a cost containment measure, they've added indexes to certain classes. For example, if we were in a class where we could set our own index, your pickup truck might take 17.5 seconds to go down the quarter mile. Well, this dragster will do it in 7.5 seconds.
I'm not going to make it very far in the bracket with it.
And it wouldn't be a very fair race.
Okay.
But what if we gave your truck a 10-second head start? Now you're trying to get there in that remaining 7.5 seconds. I've got 7.5 seconds to chase
try
you
to
down.
beat me as I make my way down there.
Then all of a sudden, it's a different animal.
Okay.
It's a different race.
So that's where the indexes come in, to keep the competitiveness without telling you you need to go against someone who can make it in 4 seconds. Where you're going, it's not going to happen.
It contains our cost quite a bit too.
That's amazing. John, thanks for having us out here.
Yep, you
when
bet.
we come back, we're going to take a closer look at this dragster and figure out, why is it so long? Why are certain features the way they are? What purpose do they have? We'll send it back to you guys in the studio for now.
All right, thanks for that, Mick, and thanks also to John. I've often wondered that myself, why it is so long. I mean, because it seems incredibly long, like longer than it needs to be.
Yeah, much.
Anyway, we'll find out that in a little bit. In studio with us, we have Trevor, a 5th grade student from Highgate Elementary. Loves everything about Highgate. Brand new school is pretty cool, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
All right, well, why don't you head on over to the board? It's time to get you to work, young man. So let's go ahead and put a square up on the board. And let's label the square, because all of the sides will be equal. Let's say they are 7 feet long each side. So what I'd like you to do is explain to Scott what the perimeter of that square is and what the area of that square is.
Okay,
And if you need some help, Scott's right there.
Okay. So I think the area of this square would be,
Well, tell me a little about what area is. If someone asks you, what's the area of the square? What are they actually asking you about?
I kind of forgot about that.
That's okay. What about the perimeter? Do you know anything about the perimeter?
I'm pretty sure that's like the outside of the...
There you go. So we want to know what we're talking about first, right? So if you were to be asked about the perimeter of this square, right? And we'll say that's P. How would you find the perimeter of this square?
We would multiply the sides.
You could multiply the sides, and that would be for area. But you just said the perimeter is going to go all the way around, right?
Yeah.
So here's another question for you. You said the bottom part is 7. What is this side over here?
That's 7.
That's 7 also, right? 7 feet. How about the top part?
7.
Okay, well, you're getting the hang of it here. Good job. What about over here?
7.
Oh, man. Guess what? That makes it a square, huh?
Yes.
Okay, so squares have all the same sides, the lengths of sides are all the same. And you told me earlier that the perimeter is the distance around, right?
Yes.
So can you find the distance around this square now?
So since you told me it's not multiplication is for the area, we should do addition.
That's a
because
good
we're
idea.
trying to figure out the entire perimeter
That's
of the
it,
square.
yeah. We want to know, basically we want to know, if you started here, we want to know how far it is from here to here to here, all the way around, right? How far is it? So how would you do that?
So first what I would do is multiply 7 by 2.
Okay.
Then I'd get 14. Then I'd do that with this side. I'd get 14. Then I'd add them together. 4 plus 4 is 8. 1 plus 1 is 2.
Gotcha. And I
28.
like the way you did that. Now we got to have units on the end of our answer, right? So it would be 28 what?
28 feet.
There you go. Go ahead and put the FT in there, and that's the perimeter. Good job. And I like the way you did that because there's a lot of different ways to figure this out, right? You could add 7 plus 7 plus 7 plus 7. You could do 7 times 2 like you did here and add them together. You could even do 7 times 4 because there's 4 sides, right? Lots of different ways to find that out. Okay, so we got the perimeter now, and that's the distance around. And now what we want to do is find the area. So now that you know the perimeter is the distance around, how would you describe the area? What is it? What are we asking about?
So the area is how much feet is inside the cube, which we would need to multiply for.
That's it, yeah. So we're talking about the inside now, right? The area inside. And when you say you multiply, which numbers are going to multiply together?
7 by 7.
Okay, go ahead. Gotcha. So we got 49, and of course we have to have some units, right? So what units do we have here?
So we have feet.
Gotcha. So we'll put feet. Now we have to change these units just a little bit with area, because what happened is we have 7 feet times 7 feet. 7 times 7 is 49. Feet times feet is really interesting. It's actually feet to the second power, or feet squared. And sometimes you'll hear people when they talk about area, in this case, they would say, the area of this square is 49 square feet. And so one of the ways you can think about that, if you needed a picture, let's say that we had 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, right? We have 7 columns. They're not perfectly drawn, of course, but you can see we have 7 columns because they're 7 feet. And if you had the same thing going this direction, I won't make it exactly to scale, but you can see what happens is you have a whole bunch of squares in here, right? And each of these squares is 1 by 1, and if you counted them all up, you'd have 49. You did it the faster way by multiplying. I think that was a good idea. But now we know perimeters on the outside, areas on the inside, and it's really important that we use those units at the end once you get an answer. So good job so far. Well done.
That's it. Nice job so far.
So far.
Let's move
That's
on
right.
to the next one.
There's always more.
All right. So let's go ahead and put a rectangle up there.
Okay.
And let's make the length 11 feet. And we'll make the width, let's go 5 feet.
Okay.
So Trevor, go ahead. We want to know the perimeter and area of that figure.
So what I would do for perimeter, so there's 2 sides of that, and each side is 5. So 5 times 2 is 10, and then
Gotcha.
11 times 2 is 22. So
Okay.
we have 10 and 22, then I would add them together to get 0 plus 2 is 2, 1 plus 2 is 3. So that's the perimeter.
And 32 what?
32 feet.
Good job. And I really like the way that you did that problem because you used the same strategy you did with the square, right?
Yeah.
2 of the sides are the same, the left and the right. The other 2 sides are the same, the top and the bottom. So you can take that one measurement and multiply it times 2 and then add them together at the end. Really well done there. So the perimeter means, again, we're going all the way around the outside, right?
And then area means the inside.
The inside, that's right. So what do we do with those numbers now that you want to find
We
the area of
multiply
this
them.
rectangle? Okay.
So 11 times 5 equals 55.
Mm-hmm.
And you told me that since we multiplied, it'd be 55 feet squared.
That's right. Nice memory. Well done. So this is getting a little bit easier because you have the terminology now down and you also know about those units at the end, right?
Yeah.
Okay, but I guess you want to watch out because every once in a while on this show, things get a little more challenging, but it'll be fun.
Well, here we go.
Here we go.
All right. So we're going to leave that rectangle up there, 11 by 5. And you know that the area is 55 square feet.
Yes.
Is there a way, because you have 32 feet of, let's say that's fencing, all right, and you're putting it around a garden, right? So if you have 32 feet of fencing, in that shape that you've got, you can cover 55 square feet.
Right.
If you have 32 feet of fencing, is it possible to get more than 55 square feet? So can
Yes.
you make a different rectangle where the area would be more than 55 square feet, but still equal to 32 feet?
Right.
Does that make sense?
Right.
Yeah.
So we only have
So
32
you
feet
guys
to
can
work with.
investigate it, and I'll give you a couple minutes to think about it.
I like it. This is a good one. This is a good farmer question for us. So we want to get the maximum area that our animals can walk around in, but we only have 32 feet of fence to go around it, right? Mm-hmm. What's your thinking here? What do you want to do with this problem, and how do you
So-
want to change this rectangle?
So how I think we could change this rectangle is we could maybe add the area by the perimeter.
You could do something like that, but remember, you only have a set perimeter. You don't have any more fence. We can't add or subtract fencing, right?
Yeah.
So let me give you an example of one thing you might want to think about. If we had another rectangle and we changed things up just a little bit, right? Let's say that we made this side a little bit shorter, and we made this 10, right? Which this, and the top would be 10, this would be feet. And 10 feet here. And then if we took one off of here, we'd have to add one over here, right? So we could do 6 feet here and 6 feet here. Okay, let's double check to make sure that the picture that I've drawn really does have a perimeter of 32, okay?
Okay.
So what's 10 plus 10?
20,
20. And what's 6 plus 6?
12,
12. And if you add them together?
32.
Gotcha. So we have the right perimeter. Now, can you tell me what the area of my new rectangle is? What
so
is the
we
area
would
about?
multiply 6 times 10, then we would get, did something wrong there, placed it in the wrong area. We would get 60.
That's it. You get 60 square feet. Now, here's the question. Did the area go up or down or stay the same?
Up.
It went up. So we did it. We have solved part of the problem. We have found a rectangle that has a bigger area, but the same amount of fencing around the outside, right?
There you go. So what I'd like you to do is, Trevor, inside the first one, the 11 by 5, put 55 square feet inside of it. Inside the new one that you did, you're going to write 60 square feet.
Good job.
And if you could do me a favor, get rid of all of the calculations you have at the bottom.
Okay.
So you can erase all of that stuff.
Use that eraser side. There you go. Just use that eraser side all the way around. Hey. And we'll hope it taps. Go ahead and tap it with the eraser. Now you got to tap it with the eraser, buddy. There you go. Circle it again. Circle the wagons. There you go. The eraser works wonders on this smartboard. You just got to keep that eraser side going, huh? There you go. Well done.
All right.
Nice
So
job.
now you did what I've asked you to do. You went a little bit more with area. I want you to find even more area.
Uh-oh. Okay. So, Trevor, what do you think? We had one rectangle and we had another rectangle and we got bigger area. How do you think we can make it even bigger area without adding any more fence?
So I think we could change the dimensions again.
That's a good idea. This might not be drawn to scale, but I'll do my best to draw a rectangle that looks a little bit like a square, but let's say this side's longer. How long do you want to make the rectangle this way? Side to side.
Maybe 8.
Okay, give it a shot.
Wait, so this side longer and this side shorter?
Yep, that's right. It could be shorter. We'll have to find out what it is. 8 on the top and 8 on the bottom, right? That's going to make a rectangle. Now, what did you do to get it from 10? Good job. To get it from 10 to 8. How did you do that?
I subtracted 2 from this, and we're
That's
going to
right.
add 2
Good
to
job.
this
You
side.
subtracted 2. So if you subtracted 2 on the top and the bottom, what do you have to do on the right and the left?
Add 2.
That's it. What do you get? Uh-oh. Question of the day. What kind of shape do you have now?
A square.
You have a square. Here's the next question of the day. Is a square still a rectangle? Oh, I got him thinking today. That's a good question, isn't it? Mm-hmm. It's a good question. Are the sides parallel to each other still? Do we still have right angles?
Yeah.
Yeah. So a square is still a rectangle. Now here's what we have to test. Do you still have 32 feet all the way around? Can you figure that out real quick?
So
Because we don't want to change the perimeter.
8 plus 8 times 2 would be 16. So
Uh-huh.
16 plus 16 equals 6 plus 6. 2, 1 right there. 1 plus 1 plus 1, 3.
Okay. Whew. So we have the same amount of fencing. We didn't change that part. Now we want to see if the area went up, right?
Okay.
So with the dimensions that you've drawn on this new rectangle, which is actually a square, right? What's the area of this square / rectangle?
So we would multiply 8 by 8. That would be 64.
64. Did the area go up, down, or stay the same?
Up.
It went up. Can you put it right in the middle of the square there? So let's think about this now. It kept going up and up and up as you made the top and the bottom smaller and the left and the right bigger, right? Mm-hmm. Well, what happened if you kept doing that? What happened if you made the top and the bottom smaller and the left and the right bigger? Let's say the top and the bottom went down to, what would that be?
6.
6 and 6. And the left and the right went up to, what would that be?
8 and 8. Actually, no, 10 and 10.
10 and 10. Well, that's back to this rectangle over here, right? That was 10 and 6. So if you keep going with the pattern we have, you're going to end up getting similar pictures to what we did before. Would you be willing to bet that that is the biggest possible area that you could get with 32 feet of fencing?
Yes, and I actually did the calculations in my head that if we made this side 7 and that side 9, we would get 9 plus 9, 18, then 18 plus 14 would be 32.
Yeah.
But then if we multiplied 9 by 7,
Good job doing this in your head. I like how you're thinking
this
here.
would be 63.
Yeah, so if we only went down 1, we'd be a little bit off, but it would be 1 square foot less.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what I wanted you
like
to
it.
do. So nicely done. Because what's going to happen is when you get into junior high and high school, you're going to get a problem. And they're going to say you have 32 feet of fencing. what is the most area you can make out of it? And a lot of kids will do something like the 11 by 5 and they'll go, I got 55 and I'm done. Here's the key. The closer you can get to a square, the most area you will have. All right, so if you remember that, that's going to be a key for you in years to come. All right,
Okay.
so if you only have a certain number of perimeter, right, you have a certain amount of perimeter, the closer you can get to a square, that gives you the most area. All right? All right. Nicely done so far today. And for your great effort, you've got yourself a meal courtesy of our friends at Grillenberger, so congratulations on that. When you go there, make sure you say hi to Lydia. She loves Do the Math, and she loves seeing all the kids that come in with those certificates, so hopefully you have an opportunity to go enjoy a meal of your liking at Grillenberger. Well, Mick said last time we wanted to find out why dragsters were so long, and we were talking about the same thing in here, so let's go back and find out. What's going on, Mick?
And we're back out here with John Lanko, one of the many people responsible for the Do the Math program here in Kern County. And specifically today, we're not even focused on that part. We're
talking racing.
How does the math come into racing here? We talked earlier about the general specifics of what a dragster is, what a drag race is. Now let's take a look at all of this that goes into it.
Well, drag racing is really all about the math. There's a ton of math that we're doing constantly, and there's a ton of design in these cars. These cars are specifically designed to do one task. Just like those big earth movers that you went and saw, those big caterpillars,
Right.
They're designed to do those tasks. They're very heavy duty. This is a very light duty in certain areas because we want to conserve weight. So the car is made out of a steel tubing. The chassis is a thin wall steel tubing.
And that's this part right here?
Right. These
Okay,
tubes,
where everything connects to it.
Right, these tubes are only 58 thousandths of an inch thick.
Wow.
It's a very thin wall aircraft tubing, but it's strong and resilient. The front end has a very lightweight axle. You mentioned in the last segment, the front tires are very small. They're basically a high-speed motorcycle tire.
Okay, so really it's there just to make sure you're on course, not so much about handling the torque or the ground, more of a direction.
Our course is a straight course, so it's minor corrections as we're going down the track. We really don't have much of a turning radius in this.
Okay.
You know? We see the front wing here.
Yeah, this reminds me of like a sports car. Is that,
Well,
you know, some of them are for show, some are for actual effect. Does this one? Which one is this one providing?
If you look
for
at the
us?
wing, the airfoil element of the wing is down. Typically, a wing, if it wanted if you wanted to take advantage of the lift, it would be flipped the
right
other
in
way.
an airplane, you want that pressure to bring it up. I'm
Right.
taking because it's flipped. We want that pressure pushing you down.
We want it at high speed, at 170 or 80 miles an hour, to be pushing this front end down for better traction without a weight penalty. So that wing at speed is giving us that downforce.
Okay. So as we move our way back here, real quickly on this tire up front
yeah.
here, I see that sort of a disc. I don't see it on the left side, only the right side. Is that another effect, or is that for something else?
That actually serves a very valuable purpose. The timing at the racetrack is light beams that go across, the track, okay? And that serves to break that beam. That's what gives us the indication of timing at different points on the racetrack. That lets us put the car exactly on the starting line.
So we're moving back here. I now see some sort of tank.
So this is the fuel tank.
Fuel tank.
And it holds, this cart holds about 7 gallons of methanol fuel.
Methanol. Can I go down to the local 7-Eleven Chevron Shell? Can I go pick up some methanol?
No.
Go and put it in my truck and drive around town.
Methanol is a fuel really used in racing.
Okay.
And it gives us more horsepower and has less heat buildup than gasoline.
I'm going to assume that's the incredibly, 7 gallons of incredibly volatile fuel. And right behind it looks like we have some good safety measures here.
Right, we've got 20 pounds of fire bottles, 2 10-pound fire bottles here of extinguisher that is plumbed through these steel lines back to nozzles that are strategically placed on the car so that if we have an issue, if we have a flash fire or fire, the driver can hit an activating knob that sets these bottles off and floods the area with fire retardant. Douse that fire quickly.
We're going our way back from the fire bottles now. I see a lot of hoses and some things that people might have seen in a movie, up top on the engine here, a big belt. Kind of generally, what are we looking at here that I think is the engine, as we could call it?
It is. The engine is based on a 1957 Chrysler.
1957 Chrysler. With a completely new transmission.
392 Hemi. It has hemispherical combustion chambers. Where the valves sit, there's half a sphere, a hemisphere. This model is the original Hemi. They were
Wow.
very popular in the late 60s.
So even the Hemis we see today, this is where it all got started.
Yes, it all started with this. We add the power with the supercharger. So this is a supercharger that takes the air and fuel mixture and forces it into the cylinders. The air and
Being
fuel
put
is
out.
forced into the cylinders, making those cylinders more efficient and making more power.
Okay, so going up front here, I see this massive belt. I know a lot of people, if they look inside, somebody's vehicle, passenger vehicle, they might see multiple belts. What is this belt specifically designed to do?
This is the drive belt that drives the supercharger. It connects from the crankshaft down here up by this cog belt to the supercharger, and the rotation of the crankshaft turns the supercharger. This idler here, this pulley, simply is there to take up the slack in the belt. That's
Okay.
all its job is.
Awesome.
So that's where we're making the power, is by spinning that supercharger.
I'm looking at a tire that's about as wide as I am, and it's huge. So is this where the power is going to?
It is, and it's a purposely designed racing tire. We call it a drag racing slick. It's slick because the surface of the tire is slick.
There's no
to it.
tread or anything, so I don't want to take this mudding or anything like
Right.
that.
In fact, if we compare it to a conventional tire,
Okay.
you can see that a conventional tire has a very aggressive tread, and that tread is there to do a number of things. On the street, there's a lot of different conditions that motorists encounter. So they're going to have rain or mud or other things like that.
Okay.
These channels are there to push and sipe that water away.
Pull everything away so it can
Gives that
maintain
water
contact.
or that mud a place to go.
Okay.
But on the racing surface, the track is groomed, it's very flat,
Okay.
It's got a huge amount of traction, so we want the biggest footprint when the car's sitting on the ground of tire, of rubber that we can have on the racing surface. So
Gotcha.
if you look at the surface area of this, if we look just the top of it,
Okay.
there's very much less with the top of this tread pattern.
Especially with
than there is
all the
across
different
here.
places where
There's a
you're
lot of
not
voids.
touching the ground.
Exactly.
But here, the
Exactly.
entire surface is on the ground, producing the most power onto the asphalt. Looking inside doesn't look overly complicated, but it doesn't look like a typical passenger vehicle setup with a steering wheel and a shifter.
Like, again, just the components that we need for going down the quarter mile. There are obviously no creature comforts. The steering wheel looks different than what you're used to seeing because we only have to turn it a very small amount.
Right.
The shifter is right here, close and accessible. The brake on this car is actually a hand brake. There's a
Okay.
lever on this side that
Okay.
lets me use the brake. And then the accelerator pedal's on the proper side, and there's a footrest for your foot on the other side. Safety belts,
Always important, especially when you're doing 180 miles an hour.
and these are covered with a flame-proof coating as well.
Okay.
And then back here at the back, we have dual parachutes to slow us down. We have brakes on the car, but these parachutes will really slow us down. We're required to have one. I like to have two just for backup.
We'll come back to here in a little bit, and when we come back, we'll take a look at, because this is an older style dragster, how does John modify the engine and different components to make him faster or slower? We'll see what happens when we come back.
Not like we were drag racing on our bikes, but I remember having knobbies and stuff like that on our wheels, and then slicks when we were growing up on those excellent bikes we had with the banana seats and stuff like that. Kids today are like, what are you talking about, banana seats? And so, you know what I'm talking about?
No.
Yeah, see, that's all right. I don't know what you're doing, old man. I need banana seats and stuff like that.
cruisers,
Slicks and knobbies
man.
and stuff.
That's right.
Anyway, in studio with us, we have Trevor, a 5th grade student from Highgate Elementary. Did you learn a little bit from perimeter and area working on those problems right there? All right, so remember, the closer you get to a square, that's how you get the most area for your perimeter. All right? So we're going to go to something totally different. You pretty good with money? Yeah, you like money?
Learned it in 4th grade.
You did it in 4th grade. All right, good. So you've got a year of experience with money.
Yeah.
Go to the board, young man. Here's a great problem for you. So we're going to use pennies, nickels, dimes, and quarters. So you can just put like P, N, D, and Q. So pennies, nickels, dimes, D, and then Q for quarters. All right? Do me a favor, fix your dime, because I know you were kind of stuck in the middle of making a lowercase or uppercase. And so you can put a D up there.
Okay.
All right. And maybe off on the side, put 68 cents.
So,
You can put it anywhere you want, 68 cents. All right, so we need to make 68 cents, and we need to use the least number of coins possible. All right? So what is the fewest number of coins you need to make 68 cents? All right?
Sounds good.
Go.
Trevor, tell me what you're thinking a little bit about.
so
How are we going to approach this problem? For instance, can you just tell me, maybe off the top of your head, how could you make 68 cents and do it with a whole bunch of coins? Like maybe just one type of coin. What's one way you can make 68 cents?
68 cents with one type of coin.
Yeah, what would you do there?
You could probably get 68 pennies.
Yeah,
or,
you could do 68 pennies. That's one way to do it, right?
Yeah.
And then of course, you could start changing some of them in. Every 5 pennies could be a nickel. So how do you want to go about this problem, seeing if we can make the least amount of coins? Or what's going on in your head? What are you thinking about?
So what I think we could do first is add 2 quarters.
Okay, now why'd you pick 2 quarters? Hold on.
Because each quarter is 25 cents, and if
Right.
I had 2 of them, that's 50.
Okay.
And that's a lot off.
Yeah, that is a lot off. Now why didn't you go to 3?
Why didn't I go to 3? It would be over because it'd be 75.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, so you're trying to get as many quarters as possible without going over 68 cents. Okay, so what's the 2 quarters worth?
50 cents.
Okay, you want to write that maybe off to the side somewhere or on the left and the right, wherever you might want to do it?
Might as well just subtract it. Or...
Okay, so you got to take it away. I like it. Good, so we got 18 cents left. Okay, how you want to make the 18 cents?
So I think we'll go for 1 dime
1 dime, and why'd you pick 1?
because it's worth 10 cents.
Okay.
And
Can you pick 2?
no, because we don't have 20.
Okay, gotcha. All right, so you got 1 dime. So what do you have left now?
8 cents.
8 cents. All right, what are you going to do next?
1 nickel because
Okay.
that would be 5 cents.
And that's worth 5, okay. And you can't go to 2 because what?
We would go over. And that would be 10.
Yeah, you go 10 cents. That wouldn't work out very well. What do you got left?
3 cents.
3 cents? So 3 more nickels? No. What do you got left?
We have pennies left, and we
Okay.
have 3 cents left.
Gotcha.
And
So
each
how many
penny
pennies?
is worth 1 cent.
Mm-hmm.
So what I would do is add 3 pennies, then we would be left with 0.
Yeah, you'd be left with 0. So that should add up all the way to 68 cents. Mm-hmm. Now, is there anything, if you look back at those numbers that you have, that you made there, is there anything at all that you could trade in? So for instance, at the beginning, we talked about 68 pennies, right? And you could trade in 5 pennies for a nickel. Is there anything that we have here, quarters, dimes, nickels, pennies, anything you could trade in?
Yeah.
Like you could trade in 2 quarters for 5 dimes, right? But would that make us less coins or more coins?
More coins.
It would make it more. So is there anything we could trade in at all that would make less coins? Because we want to have the fewest amount right now. By the way, how many coins do we have making 68 cents right here?
We would have 7.
7 coins so far. So that's a pretty darn good number there. That's a pretty low number. But is there a way we could make it into 6?
I don't
or
know.
5?
But the ways I thought, my answer would be no, because if we traded in 2 quarters for anything else, it would make like 5 dimes, and then
And that would make it go up, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. It'd make 10 nickels, now make it go up. It'd make
And
50
then-
pennies. That wouldn't work at all because we'd have a really big number. Now, the only other thing I want you to think of, and I'm really curious to know, you didn't know about the bikes we talked about earlier, but I'm curious to know if you know about this. Pennies, nickels, dimes, quarters. It wasn't in the problem. Do you know of another type of coin that we have here in the United States that is not on the list, but it's worth more than a quarter?
I have heard of some. I've heard of $1 coins.
$1 coin, that'd be too
coins.
much. Is there something
Yeah.
between a quarter and a $1 coin?
I've heard
You've heard of?
I've heard of some $60 coins. I've never seen one.
that'd
I
be a
don't know if
pretty big
it's
one, huh?
real, but
Yeah. There is one coin that we don't use very often between a quarter and a dime, and it's a 50-cent piece. It's actually half of a dollar. And so if you were going to use that, we're not going to say it, but I love to do these hypothetical situations. If you were going to use, I'll put H for half dollar, what could you put here, or what could you trade in for a half dollar?
2 quarters?
That's it. So we could make it go to 6 if they allowed us to have a half dollar. It wasn't in the problem. But just so you know, even though people think there's always one answer to math, sometimes there's different ways to do the problem. And you could think of, well, I know the problem didn't ask it, but we could get there. And it's always good to think about ahead of time what maybe would have happened. So 7, I think, is going to be our answer for today, right?
Yeah.
7 is correct, and you went about it in an excellent way because you were just subtracting it as you went. kept it organized, you did get 7, which is the correct answer. We do have phone tutors available until 5:30 this afternoon, and another partner of ours that has been with Do the Math for many of the 20 seasons is ROC and CTEC, and today we're going to take a look at cosmetology.
Well, the skills to be successful in this class are much like the skills to be successful in any class.
To join the program, but I would say you have to be like a really hard worker because this program is not easy at all. Like you have to be pretty you have to be a hard worker because it's not easy.
Come in the morning and we clock in, ready for the day, and then we stay in the classroom and she tells us what our plans are for the day, the instructions, how to turn in the assignment, and then we go out and we learn how to do it.
My specialty, I do the nail portion of cosmetology. Math is used in a different ways. For example, we have the students add up all of the cost analysis of what they're using in the classroom as far as like supplies, like how much does a nail brush cost, and as far as their other supplies like polishes, all the toiletries such as their cotton rounds. So they use that to add it up, and then they also use math to figure out how much they're going to make in a day, how much they want to make in a year, and what they want their income to be when they go out to become either a stylist or a nail technician or an esthetician.
For skincare, we cover facials, we cover waxing, all areas of waxing, facial waxing, underarm waxing, waxing legs. We also cover facial peels, and we cover makeup and application of eyelashes. We cover perming of eyelashes and tinting of eyelash and eyebrows.
All right, thanks once again to all of the staff and students at ROC and CTEC. They produce those 100% on site with the students, and we are very, very proud of what they've been sending us this year. Just some extraordinary work with all of the programs they've got going on over at the CTEC building. In studio, we have Trevor, a 5th grade student from Highgate. Things going pretty well?
Yeah.
All right, you ready to get back to work?
Yes.
Back to the board, young man. Here we go. So, Trevor, explain to Scott anything you know about triangles.
So I know there's not just one, like the basic ones kindergartners or 1st graders learn. There's lots.
Okay,
actually.
Well, draw me a triangle and then tell me a little bit about what kind of triangle you've drawn. There's a triangle. Anything specific that you're looking at this triangle and say, I know it's a triangle because...
I know it's a triangle because it has 3 points and 3 equal ends.
Gotcha, so 3 sides and 3 angles, right? All right, triangle, tri means 3, and then we have 3 angles. That makes sense. So anything else you can tell me about the name of this triangle or anything specific characteristics that you can point out here?
Honestly, characteristics?
Well, for instance, why don't you draw me a different triangle that looks different? Still a triangle, but maybe looks a little different that you can maybe compare and contrast between this one and the next one that you draw.
Yeah.
Aha, yeah, we made things a little bit longer there. All right, good deal. Anything else you could think of that you could make? Can you make them shorter, longer?
You can make them shorter, longer, taller, shorter, wider. Longer.
We got all kinds of things to look at, huh?
Yeah.
So what did you do from the first one to the second one? What did you make the angles bigger, smaller? Did you make the sides bigger, smaller? What happened there?
So what I did for my second one, I made the length smaller, the height longer.
Gotcha. So two of the sides look like maybe they got a little longer, one of them got a little shorter, right?
Yeah.
What about the angles? What happened with the angles? If you look, if you try to compare these two top angles, maybe this one and this one, did that one change much?
No, not really.
Doesn't look like it changed much, right? I mean, maybe it did if we measured it, but it doesn't look like it, just on looking at it, doesn't look too bad. How about this one? If we look at this one over here compared to this one over here, what happened to that angle?
What happened? Not really much I can see, but
Did it get bigger or smaller? What do you think?
I think it got smaller.
It did get smaller, yeah, that's right. And if you had to guess, over here, our third angle, if you compared it to this angle over here, what happened to that angle?
So what happened to this angle? It got shorter, and
The angle looks like it actually got a little bigger from this one to this one, right? I mean, we'd have to measure it again, but just on looking at it, it looks like it got a little bigger. So you made a new triangle, still a triangle, but some of the angles change, and so maybe the name of that changes, right? So there's ways that we can name triangles based on their angles, okay?
So we won't even worry about the names of them right now.
Okay.
But we know there are different triangles based on angles.
Right.
In about 30 seconds, can you show us some based on sides?
Ah, gotcha. So we can change the sides as well, right? You said this one got shorter, right? And these ones got longer. So you can have really long angles. You can have maybe a triangle like this where these two sides are the same, right? You could even have a triangle that looked like yours from the beginning, maybe where all the sides are the same. So you could have all different sides, or two sides the same, or three sides the same. All kinds of different combinations. Then of course you change that up with some of the angles, and you have lots of combinations. That's why we see triangles in lots of different shapes and sizes, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good intro. I like that part.
All right, so we know angles and side lengths are different ways to classify triangles, and we'll see if we can hit a little bit more on that in just a few moments. But we do have one more opportunity to head back out to check out the dragster and see what John and Mick are up to.
All right, back out here with John Lanko and his dragster. We've taken a look at the entire car, and now we're really going to dive into the how do you change it up? Because I know there's not a lot you can do with it with an older engine where there's no electronics really on the entire engine itself. So we have we have a massive piece of metal here. I have no idea what this is. I guess we could start with your times. Based on your times, do you make modifications?
One of the major things that we look at is what we call the time slip. At the end of every race down the racetrack, we stop and we get a computer printout of what the performance of the car was at different incremental spots along the track. So I'll put some time slips together for you so you can see what they look like. They give us a ton of feedback and information on each pass down the track. We see some of the things that are reflected in the time slip, the car number, obviously, the class, 760
Okay,
is the
so that's
index.
where you're shooting for that as close to 7.6 without going too
what
fast.
we're aiming for. RT is the reaction time. This is the time that the driver spent leaving the starting line. How close to the green light coming on did the driver leave the starting line? I actually left too soon.
I was to say, if it's a negative, that must mean you three thousandths of a second too early?
Right, the car left 3,000ths too early. But again, this was during time trials, so there's no penalty for that. That's just a reflection of my performance at that point. The 60-foot time, how long did the car take to go 60 feet? 3:30, the 8th mile. These are all incremental times that, as we compare time slip to time slip, is going to begin to tell us a story. At the quarter mile, the car went 7.594. We were aiming for 760.
Wow, you were
pretty
6,000. That's amazing.
Pretty close. We felt pretty good about that.
Absolutely.
Again, being a time trial, we're not penalized for that.
Right.
That just gives us that feedback. That's our practice run. And the mile an hour, 182. Let's look at another time slip now. So we came back, Billy and I talked about it, and we said we were so close, let's leave it alone and run and try and get it to that 60
See what happens
number.
with the next one.
Again, the incrementals, we're almost at the exact same number, exact same mile an hour. Let's look at one more then. So Billy and I decided we're going to slow the car down. We're going to take some power away. Okay. We did that by adjusting the speed of the supercharger. We'll talk about that in a second. We made one small change. The car went quite a bit slower to us.
Right, yeah, we're no longer 6,000. Now we're almost 2
7.
tenths over,
Right.
almost a tenth over.
Right, a full tenth. Mile an hour, still comparable to what we'd done before.
Okay.
So when it came time for eliminations, now it's time for the race, all right? We decided, after looking at this feedback, to go back to our 759 tune-up, okay?
Okay.
So if we look at that, the first pass, our car number 33, against our competitor, We get down to the finish line. First to start the reaction time, we talk about an 0.36 reaction time.
Okay, so you were quicker on the pedal than your opponent.
Our competitor had a slower reaction time. Get down to the finish line. We draw the win. Now we're in competition, so we get an indication of the win. I got there first. I did not go faster than 7.6 seconds.
Okay.
But I went quite a bit slower than 7.6 seconds.
Okay.
The competitor was much closer. My mile an hour now way off.
Whoa.
This is telling us a story. This is telling us that as I got down there, I never saw the competitor, so I let off the accelerator and I actually grabbed a lot of brake. I slowed the car down because all I got to do is get to that finish line before the competitor does.
Right.
So the difference in the race was at that starting line.
Okay, so
that's
because you're able to get on it 0.3 of a second faster, all of a sudden you're getting the acceleration, it's exponentially increasing your distance.
Big difference. And then the next round of competition, this is a very interesting pass, all right? We should begin with the react. Again, both of us aiming for 760. The reaction time, 0.28 to my competitor's 0.19.
Man.
He's got a better reaction time.
Okay.
We're going down the track together. We get to the finish line. We're going down the track side by side. We get to the finish line.
Oh,
he draws the win because
too fast. You were under 7.6.
Right. But the mile an hour was also off.
You were also going faster.
I was on the brake because usually we're running 180 something in the mile an hour. We look down here and we see left got there first by 59 10,000ths.
Mm-hmm.
So I was getting to the finish line before the competitor as closely as I could, but I went too quick. The difference there, that starting line reaction time. He had a better reaction time than I did.
So real quickly, how do you modify, because there's not much you can modify, the supercharger, what do you do and what does it modify? Real quickly, we'll wrap it up here.
Right.
But how does the supercharger change the car's performance?
So this supercharger is a big air pump. These vanes in here spin and they compress the air and force it into the engine. So you can see them spinning there.
Okay,
The
so it's
speed,
grabbing that air and pushing it down into the cylinder.
the speed with which we spin those is reflected by the pulleys. So we have a pulley we showed you earlier on the crankshaft. We have a pulley. We're running a 41 pulley with 41 teeth in it.
Okay.
If we have the pulley on top on the supercharger with 41 teeth, then we are spinning that supercharger at a ratio 1:1.
Okay.
If we want to add horsepower, we know that we need to spin that supercharger faster. We take a smaller pulley.
Okay,
put
so
that
even though
smaller
this one's
pulley-
spinning once, it's going to have more than one revolution. It's going to have one and a little over a quarter more for the supercharger.
Right. And so now we can spin that faster. We can keep adjusting the ratio between these to speed up or slow down the supercharger to add or take power away.
So that's
as
how
we
you
do it.
modify your speed and
It
how
is.
you kind of play with the times there.
It is.
Really? You're thinking it's really just a ratio.
All mechanical.
And that's all math.
Right, and there's a ton of ratios in this car. There's ratios everywhere.
That's
Math
amazing.
Everywhere in estimation, and man, it's all day long. We're doing
That's awesome. John, thank you so much for having us out here. Thanks for helping us do the math as always, even behind the scenes. We're loving to see what you do outside of doing the math, and even outside of doing the math, you're still doing the math, and it's amazing to see. We'll send it back to you guys in the studio.
Wait a minute, Nick, there's one more thing we got to do before we take the car to the track. We got to warm it up.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
And we need a driver in the cockpit. So would you serve as the driver?
Oh, absolutely.
All right.
We'll send it back to you guys in the studio. Check out, look for some bonus footage.
Let's go
and
warm
we'll
it
see
up.
what we can do.
Come on.
All right, there he is, getting in the cockpit right there. So if you want to check out Mick getting in that and starting up that race car, that dragster, and I'll tell you, I took a look at it, and it is, you just got to watch it, right, to see the reaction and what's going on. So that's on our Facebook page, and that is the bonus coverage of Mickey getting into the dragster right there with John. In studio today, we had Trevor, a 5th grader from Highland, or Highgate. Maybe you go to Highland someday for high school, who knows. Did you learn a little something today?
Yes, I did.
Good. Did you have fun today?
Lots.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. We do have phone tutors available until 5:30 this afternoon. And until we meet again, continue to do the math.
Major support for Do the Math has been provided by Chevron, the Kern County Superintendent of Schools, Edison International, Valley Strong Credit Union, California Resources Corporation, Panama Buena Vista Union School District, Bakersfield City School District, and Kern High School District. with additional production assistance provided by these supporters of education in Kern County and throughout the state of California.